Good afternoon. It's 12:30, so we're about to start our next webinar in the Climate Action Academy. I'll just wait a few moments so everybody has the time to join. And we are making sure that everybody's there, but I will soon start. Yeah, no, I think everybody joins quite easily, so that's great. So I think we can just start. Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome you all to this European Climate Pact Academy webinar on citizen science. Before we start, I would like to share some housekeeping rules with you. So on the next slide, you can see the housekeeping rules. As you may have noticed already, your microphones and your cameras are turned off. This doesn't mean you don't have the opportunity to ask questions because we have the Slido for you. So in a bit, I will show you a slide with a QR code where you can join the Slido and you have the opportunity to ask questions. You can ask any question you have related to the content, and we will be addressing your questions at the very end of the webinar. We will, in the same app, we will also be launching polls and different types of questions. So be ready to respond whenever it pops up, but I'm sure you will see it. And lastly, be aware that the meeting is recorded and that all the materials will be shared afterwards. So you have a chance to refer back to the presentations, and we share some additional resources if you want to go further into the topic. So I think, oh yeah, here first you can join the Slido. So take out your mobile phones, scan the QR code, and then it will be pretty straightforward to add your question, to ask your question. On the right, you can see what it looks like. You just have the Q&A, and you have the text field to type your question. If anything happens, if for some reason you lose your Slido, don't worry, because throughout the webinar, you will have several opportunities where you can scan the QR code again to ask your questions. But here it is. All right. So I think we can move on to the EU Climate Pact. I think most of you may be familiar already with the European Climate Pact, but for those of you that are new today, welcome. I will give a short introduction to you about what the European Climate Pact is. So it's an opportunity for people, communities, and organizations to participate in climate action across Europe. And where people have the opportunity to learn more about climate change, to develop and implement solutions, and also to connect with others to maximize the impact of these solutions. It has become a pretty large movement. So as you can see on the left, by the numbers, we now have more than 1,000 Climate Pact ambassadors across the member states, and there are many initiatives and events being organized across the EU. So if you're not involved yet, make sure to check out the Climate Pact website, where you can find more information, and you can also reach out to people in your community that are actively involved. And the Climate Pact is also pretty closely related to some of the concepts and principles of citizen science. It may not be a citizen science project in a traditional sense, but it has some close similarities. You will learn more about citizen science, of course, in the next 90 minutes, but I would like to point out some of the things that they have in common. So, for example, they both share a commitment to public engagement. So in citizen science, the public really participates and actively contributes to scientific research. And the Climate Pact involves the public in sustainability efforts. I think another key thing is that there is an emphasis on knowledge sharing and inspiring others. So both really aim to disseminate information, inspire action, and support initiatives on a local level. And I think this last bit is like one of the key things, that they both highlight the importance of individual actions to really contribute to a greater cause. So in citizen science, every observation made by a participant adds to a bigger understanding of how our world works. And similarly, I think in Climate Pact, every action taken at a community level really contributes to a more sustainable future. So these individual actions together contribute to something bigger. So this is just a short introduction, and here on this slide, You can also, for several reasons, the European Commission also makes use of, increasingly makes use of citizen science. It has become a key driver of the EU climate policy. And yeah, here on the left, you can see some of the key benefits and the value of using citizen science in making policies. I can just highlight a few, but for example, it increases public engagement and participation by involving a wider range of stakeholders and citizens. It really makes policy decisions more inclusive and participatory. And it also increases accountability by providing clear and open data processes for collecting data and for eventually taking decisions. Here on the right, you can also see some examples of policy areas and projects that involve citizen science. For example, the Climate Adapt, which provides a hub for climate adaptation knowledge, including citizen-generated data and research. On the left, you also have one about air quality, where citizens were involved to measure the air quality in their cities. But later in this webinar, you will hear more about other projects that also involve citizen science. So now that you have a little bit of context and background about the topic of today, I'd be curious to know a little bit more about you as well. So, and we can also test the Slido. So on the next page, yeah, I have a question for you. Now, this is right. Which country are you joining us from today? So I'm based in Spain, and the team I'm working with together, they're also across different countries. So they're in Belgium, they're in the UK, but we're curious to know where you're joining us from. Romania, pretty big. Sweden, Belgium is always, of course, there. France, Greece, also some countries outside Europe. So that's also nice to see. Kenya, I see, Turkey. A lot of people from France, Portugal. That's great. So just to get an idea where everybody is from, more or less. Mongolia, also nice. All right, and then one more question for you, just to understand a bit better how familiar you are with the topic. We can see it on the next slide. So yeah, as I was saying, just to understand a little bit better how familiar you are with the topic. So have you ever been involved in citizen science projects or experiments, maybe as a participant, or maybe you've organized a citizen science project? So, well, it's kind of half-half. Half has never participated, and then on different frequency basis, people have been participating. So it's an interesting mix. For those new to citizen science, you will get to know all about it, and those who already know some things, I'm sure there will be new learnings for you as well. So I would like to introduce the speakers of today. So first of all, we have Beatriz Noriega Ortega. She is a project officer at the European Citizen Science Association, which is also a partner of the European Climate Pact. She has led multiple research projects involving citizen science, and she will be talking about the principles of citizen science and share more about the projects that she has been working on. Then as a second speaker, we have Martin Brocklehurst. He is a chair of the Citizen Science Global Partnership Board, and he's also a founding member of the European Citizen Science Association, which Beatriz is also active in. He has extensive experience in international citizen science advocacy, and he will talk more about the AURORA project as well as the Citizen Science Global Partnership. And then last but not least, some of you may be familiar with Ioana Petrescu for different reasons. First of all, she is a Climate Pact ambassador, but she was also a former Minister of Finance from Romania. Currently, she's president of the Simply Green Association, which is a non-profit organization with projects and actions focusing on areas such as environmental protection, energy, education, health, and digitalization. In addition, she advises the European Space Policy Institute, and during this webinar, she will be explaining more about Earth observations, what they are, and how they are relevant for climate science. So we have 3 very interesting presentations ahead. On the next slide, you can see a short summary of what we'll be talking about today. So Beatriz will start with an introduction to citizen science, sharing what it is, and how you can use it. Then Martin will continue with the AURORA project and share a little bit more about current topics. Then Joanna will share more about her experiences and in particular be talking about Earth observations. And then lastly, Beatriz will give you the opportunity to join in a citizen science experiment and show you where you can find the different types of experiments. So yeah, that's it for today. So I'd like to invite you, Beatriz, to start explaining us more about citizen science. Thank you very much for joining today.
Thank you so much. I hope you can all hear me well. Yes, let's get started. Let's go to the next slide. Perfect. So I would like to start by defining citizen science or trying to define citizen science. And in the screen, you can see many different definitions from different institutions. For example, from National Geographic, where they say that citizen science is the practice of public participation and collaboration in scientific research to increase scientific knowledge. Through citizen science, people share and contribute to data monitoring and collection programs. We also have from Wikipedia that they say research conducted with participation from the general public or amateur, non-professional researchers, participants for science, social sciences, or many other disciplines. From the NASA's citizen science projects are collaboration between scientists and interested members of the public. And our own from the European Citizen Science Platform, we say that citizen science is any activity that involves the public in scientific research and thus has the potential to bring together science, policymakers, and society as a whole in an impactful way. As you can see, they are a bit different, but they have some things in common. We have public, we have scientific research, we have data monitoring. So there are some ideas there that are common. If we go to the next slide, we see that actually defining citizen science is a bigger challenge than it might seem. And there is actually a book that is called The Science of Citizen Science. And there is an entire chapter on this challenge of the definition of citizen science. And there they list 34 different definitions, but at the end they come to the conclusion that actually fitness for purpose is an important aspect when choosing a definition to be given in a certain context. So we use citizen science as an umbrella term for many different activities that, yes, they have the component that there is a scientific activity and that the public is involved, but the definition is quite broad. Let's go to the next slide, and here we can see actually we can say that citizen science is both very, very old and very, very new. Why I say this? Because we have records of citizen science being used since the year 812. And in that case, so in the example that is on the screen, it's about the cherry blossoms in Japan, where people have been monitoring the cherry blossoms since the 812. However, the first time that we see citizen science in a scientific publication is almost more than 1,000 years later, in 1989. So before that, citizen science existed. People were doing it, but it was not really known or taken as a serious way of doing research. And it was much, much, much later that we see citizen science becoming an acceptable and valid method for research. Let's go to the next slide. And why is it that we want to use citizen science? Well, one of the reasons is because citizen science has capabilities that traditional research methods do not have. So for example, if we have a group of people, of scientists, looking at data, in this case, the cherry blossoms again in Japan, maybe this group of scientists can be in one city and look at one park, or, okay, let's be generous, they can look at 50 parks. But if we have people doing this, they can be in the entire Japan area looking at practically all the trees that are in Japan. So here we have, in this graph, data since 812 till 2025, so this year. And for this, we have, in this case, it's only about Kyoto, the day of the year in which we had full blossoms of cherry blossoms. And we have so much data. We can see trends. Maybe if you look at the weather data from this specific year, you can find conclusions. You can draw conclusions. We see, for example, that in 2023, we had the earliest blossom. And yeah, basically this kind of coverage is something that you could not get with a traditional research method. So that's what citizen science can do. And this is just one example. Let's go to the next slide. And yes, I think it is quite common to see citizen science related to biodiversity. Because of what I said before, the capability to be in many different places to cover a much bigger area. However, we are all different people with different interests, and not everybody is interested in cherry blossoms. There might be people that are more interested in understanding the air quality, the water quality of the river they live close to, or ecology, astronomy. They might be interested in engineering. So that's why citizen science is not only about biodiversity, although it might be one of the most common topics, but it can be in all kinds of topics in scientific research. I think that's it for now. Sorry, no. Yes, we also have citizen science specifically in topics related to climate action. And why we have this is, on the one hand, because yes, it allows for a collection of data that it wouldn't be possible with other methods, as I already said. Then we have the aspect of education and awareness, where by involving public in these scientific activities regarding climate action, we are also educating in all of the different issues that we have currently and bringing awareness on these issues. Then we have empowerment and engagement. I think it's important that we remember that not only people that have studied masters and PhDs have knowledge. Actually, everybody has knowledge that can be very valuable to scientific research. And policy influence, this is actually the best case scenario for citizen science. If we have, if we produce knowledge that then we can bring to the policymakers, and they can make better decisions for climate. That's the goal in many cases for citizen science as well, and research in general. And we can address data gaps that expand reach. Thank you. All right. Yeah. So one question is how we want to, if we want to establish a citizen science project, how can we get started? And for that, I want to bring to your attention the 10 principles of citizen science that we have created at ECSA together with the working groups. If you actually scan the code, you will get the file of the principles directly, but let's go through them a little bit here together. In the next slide, we can see the first principle that is about involvement. And there we say that citizen science projects actively involve citizens in scientific endeavors that generate new knowledge or understanding. Citizens may act as contributors, collaborators, or project leaders and have a meaningful role in the project. It's important that we recognize that everyone can have a meaningful role in the project. Number 2 would be about the outcome, and this is important that we realize that citizen science is not just it's not just science communication. It's actually getting people involved, and it has to be an actual research question that we want to solve. The next would be number 3 in the next slide, where we have the benefits. And for citizen science, it's very important that everyone is benefited from this activity. So yes, the scientists will, for example, get more data, but what are the citizens getting out of this experience? Is it that they are getting, for example, a solution to a problem that they face in their daily lives? Are they getting a new skill? Are they satisfying their own curiosity? These are all valid options, but there has to be a benefit for everybody. Number 4 is about participation, where we say that everyone, or like every citizen scientist, can participate in multiple stages of the scientific process, but not necessarily. So they can decide the level of engagement that they want to have in the project. But it is possible in theory to participate in every single stage. Then we have number 5, feedback. Citizen scientists should get feedback after they have, for example, collected data. They should know what is happening to this data, what outcomes have they found, and so on. And number 6 is the democratization, because one of the main goals of citizen science is the democratization of science, where we have, unlike traditional research approaches, here we have a greater public engagement and therefore democratization of science. The next one, number 7, is about open access in citizen science whenever possible, which should be more or less always. We want to publish in open access because it's science that it's being done by the public. Why wouldn't they then have access to these results? And number 8, which is acknowledgement. In every single case, citizen scientists should be acknowledged in the results and publications of the scientific outputs. Next one would be impact. Citizen science programs are evaluated for their scientific output, their data quality, the participant experience, and the societal or policy impact. And finally, number 10 is ethics. Every single project of citizen science needs to consider the ethical issues behind. Should it be data privacy, confidentiality, intellectual property? All of this should always be considered for citizen science. And we are aware that not every single project in citizen science will tick the 10 principles, but I think it is an important exercise that when we are creating a citizen science project, we at least look at them and think about all of them and how we can incorporate them in the project. In citizen science, we have different types of projects and also different types of engagement. And for example, we have the top-down approach, which would be when scientists have a project and then they want to involve different actors, including the public. Or we have the bottom-up approach, where the public starts have a question or a problem that they want to get solved, and then maybe, let's say, imagine a group of independent farmers that start seeing that their crops are dying, and then they organize themselves and they go and contact the scientists at their local university. Then they decide to contact an enterprise that sells biofertilizers. And so they are the base of the project, addressing their own needs, and then they go up to actually form this project with different actors. Both approaches are valuable, and they can even complement each other with the goal of being as inclusive and impactful as possible. In the next slide, we see the ladder of engagement. And if we start at the bottom, that would be everyone, because we all have curiosity and we all live in this world and we ask questions about the world we live in. So that would be the lowest level of engagement, but there is some. Then if we go up a little bit, we have the passive consumption of science. Because, for example, if we are scrolling on social media and something comes up that is about some scientific output, or in the newspaper, sometimes you come across with something about science, but you are not actually looking for it. We have the next level with this, the active consumption of science, where maybe you are not only you get this information popping up on your screen, but you are actually following science communication accounts, or you are actively looking for magazines or articles about science. Then we have the opportunistic or highly limited participation, where maybe you come across something and a project of citizen science, and you say, oh, well, why not? Anyways, going on a bike, why not to attach a sensor to my bike? I'm not looking for this, but if the opportunity comes up, I'm happy to do it. Or we have the actually joining and volunteering to do these kinds of things. Then we have the data collection and analysis, to be involved in such a project where I'm not just attaching something to my bike, but I'm actively going out to look for something, to make observations. And the last level, that would be the highest level of engagement, is do-it-yourself science style, where you can even create your own citizen science project, for example. Thank you. It's important to realize that all these levels of engagement are equally valuable. It's just they are different, and it's for different kinds of people. And now I want to talk to you about two projects that I have been part of recently, and they are in a way very similar, because both of them are about air quality, but they also have some different things. And let's start with SOCIO-BEE. So this is a project where the goal is to reduce air pollution. And we understand that to do that, we need two things. On one side, technological innovation, and on the other side, a behavioral shift. And in order to actually do this, we need the collaboration between citizens, business, volunteers, and decision makers. In the next slide, this is something that we created in this project, the beehive metaphor, and it is very related to the ladder of engagement that we saw, because in this case, we understand the project as a beehive, and we have different kinds of bees. We have the queen bee, that is, for example, someone that has high level of interest, has a lot of time, and has some knowledge as well. And so this bee is going to lead the hive. Then we have a worker bee, and the worker bee is also very engaged, has time on their hands and a lot of interest, but maybe not so much knowledge like the queen bee, but is very happy to participate and be active in the hive. Then we have the drone bees that actually don't have so much time and so much interest, but they are there. So it's more like the opportunistic kind of engagement. And they are also helping in the hive, but without having any major role. Together, they create the honey, which is the data. And this data is interested for the honeybears, which are the stakeholders. Let's say enterprises, politicians, scientists. And that reminds us that actually, in this case, it's not that the queen bees are better than the drone bees, it's that they all have a purpose in this project. And the level of engagement depends on many factors that we have to respect, that some people want to be queen bees and some people don't. They don't have the interest. And that's completely fine. And the input from each one of these bees is equally valuable. If we go to the next slide, then we have the project COMPAIR. As I said, it's quite similar. It also ended last year, and it's also about air quality. But in this case, well, we have a few different things, like we have different kinds of sensors, different kinds of apps, and the most important was the co-creation. So in this project, the citizens were involved from the beginning of the project, and they were part of creating the process for reducing air pollution or improving air quality. And the stakeholders would be schools, civil servants, local communities, cyclists, and other citizens. If we go to the next slide, we can see that in this project, we had different tools to ensure impact. One would be traffic sensors, because in this case, for this project, it was also important to see the traffic going on school streets, for example, how many cars, how many bicycles, how many bigger cars, then air quality sensors, that the data would be then correlated also with the traffic. We had a carbon footprint emission calculator in which people could calculate their own carbon footprint and then compare it to the average citizen of their city or other European cities. An augmented reality app where you could visualize the air pollution in the city that you are at using the camera, and you could see actually like molecules of pollution around you. We had visualization app for mobile air quality measurements. And we also had a policy monitoring dashboard, which was for me one of the most interesting things, because you could simulate policies. So you could choose a setting where you could simulate a policy change and then directly see the short-term effect or long-term effect in the air quality. So let's say it is for a school street, it's prohibited that during the time that the kids come to school, cars are passing. And what would be the effect of the air quality during this time? So that is different kinds of ways in which we can involve the public and where we can create impact for climate actions, in this case, air quality. I'm not gonna lie to you, citizen science is not all easy and comes just like that. There are some challenges, but luckily we also have some ways to mitigate these challenges. So some of these challenges might be the data quality and validation. For example, so the thing is, we have a lot of people, maybe in different cities, maybe all over the world, taking samples or collecting data. And it is important that we can use this data. And for that, they need to be standardized. They have to be in the same way, collected in a similar way. And for this, we have to create clear protocols and training. We need to have control measures. We need to have metadata. We need to make sure that everything is well documented. So yes, it's a challenge, but I think that if we do it right, and we have to think about it when we are creating a project, this challenge can be mitigated. Another challenge is the diversity and inclusion. We want to make sure that everyone's voices are heard. And for this, sometimes we really have to do active outreach. We need to have inclusive designs to ensure that the materials are accessible, that they are online and offline, because not everybody has the same access to internet. We need to accommodate different backgrounds and abilities. We need to make sure that we are also being, that we use language that everyone can understand, that we don't use this technical language that scientists like to use so much. So yeah, we need to think about these things from the beginning of the project. It's not something that we need to, that if it comes later, of course it can be solved also during the project, but it's important from the beginning of the project to think about an inclusive project design. Next slide. In this case, sustainability is not necessarily environmental sustainability, but more, so if a project has a funding of 3 years, how do we make sure that the impact of this project is long lasting, that it goes beyond these 3 years of funding? And yeah, so we need to maintain the project momentum. We need to have, maybe find ways to have long-term funding, maybe have technology that is leveraging. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge, But again, it's something that can be addressed already from the design of the project and worked during the project so that there is continuity and sustainability. Or we already talked a little bit about these ethical considerations, but it is very important that we talk about data privacy, ownership, participant consent, about being transparent, that there is always informed consent, that we are always protecting the data security and privacy of our participants. So we need to create very clear ethical guidelines and frameworks in order to have successful citizen science projects. Thank you very much.
Yes, and especially thanks to you, Beatriz, for introducing us to the principles of citizen science, but also highlighting the challenges and giving some examples of projects. I think it was very interesting. Thanks a lot. And also please remember, everyone, if you have any questions about Beatriz, her presentation, feel free to put your questions into the Slido. And welcome, Martin. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'll give the floor to you so you can tell us more about the AURORA project. Thank you.
Thank you, Meryl. Next slide, please. Okay, in 2022, the driest year for 40 years destroyed lives in Kenya. I donated money for the starving. I did nothing to change my lifestyle. On the 29th of October 2024, climate change became reality for the people of Valencia. I sympathized with those affected. I did nothing to change my lifestyle. On January the 7th, 2025, climate change became reality for the people of Los Angeles. I looked on in horror, but I did nothing to change my lifestyle. Then climate change came to me. It was too late. My lifestyle was changed. We are the first generation to feel the effects of climate change and the last generation who can do something about it. Barack Obama, COP21, 10 years ago. Believe in the power of your own actions. If millions take action, our world will change for the better. Al Gore. And we can take action. It is not enough to protest about climate change. We are responsible for at least 30% and up to 70% of all carbon emissions. These are driven by the actions we take on a daily basis. So ask yourself, do you care about climate change? Do you care enough to monitor your carbon emissions? Are you willing to take action to reduce your carbon footprint? Are you on track to get to net zero carbon emissions? Next slide, please. Answer this question as I continue my presentation, and let's get some idea about how many of you understand and monitor your carbon emissions. Next slide, please. Citizen science can give you the tools to help you take those hard choices. The AURORA Energy Tracker app is one such tool. It is a real citizen science project that gives you the ability to measure your carbon footprint, the energy you use to heat and power where you live, and the energy you use when you travel. It measures and benchmarks your journey to net zero carbon, and it is but one such tool to actually measure and not estimate your carbon footprint. But as yet, we have no common agreement on the citizen science tools, techniques, database systems, and support mechanisms that can be applied across Europe. We do not share data on our personal carbon footprints, and no peer pressure is building to drive change. What if we could change that? What if millions of people across Europe were sharing that data? What if doing nothing becomes socially unacceptable? To answer the oft-quoted response, why should I drive my carbon footprint down? Let me answer that with the words, because it is socially the right thing to do. It will improve your mental health. It will reduce air pollution in and outside your home and give you better health. And it will make you wealthier. Next slide, please. How do I know this is true? Well, here is my data shared with you from the AURORA Energy Tracker app for the last year, 2024. My carbon emissions from the way I heat and power our home, and from the transport decisions I make. Using the unique AURA carbon labeling scheme and the AURORA Energy Tracker app, I know that for heating and powering our homes, we are an A+ accomplisher, the very best performance and well on the way to the Paris Commission targets. For my transport solutions, this is not the same. But if I exclude my business travel, next slide, please. If I exclude my business travel, then I can bring my actual transport emissions to an A+ accomplisher. And what that is telling me is that I need to make changes in the way I do my business travel to major events to reduce my overall travel carbon footprint and come to events like this online. Or I undo most of the good work that I attempt to deliver for my transport decisions, where effectively I'm an A+ accomplisher for all my land-based transport in the UK and Ireland. And I know that all these decisions have saved my family thousands of pounds, thousands of euros. Next slide, please. But can I do more? Here I will show you that by linking citizen science to the energy transition through community energy schemes, I can accelerate the move away from fossil fuels. I can divert fossil fuel profits back into my community and further lower my community's carbon levels. Project AURORA is demonstrating that this can be done in your school, your university, your community, and such schemes can drive massive change. They remove the barrier of lack of finance through pooling community financial resources. They generate good returns on investments that can be made by all levels in society, for anyone that can afford a pint of beer, and more. They lower energy prices for community buildings, and they still leave generated funds to finance further projects. This slide is our first university project at Aarhus University in Denmark, where 121 members have taken on 900 shares, have raised 100,000 euros and installed 98 kilowatts of power on their university buildings. Next slide, please. It is operational and linked to the AURORA Energy Tracker app, which means that when you make an investment, you can discount the carbon saved against your own carbon footprint. And the app is live, showing you daily production of energy from the new installation. Next slide, please. But we can do more. We can come down to the school level. And this is the very first school that has developed an energy community in Spain, Centro Cultural Palomeras, in a working class neighborhood in Madrid. The agreements are now in place, crowdfunding has been launched, and 140,000 euros out of a target of 150,000 euros has been raised to install 42 kilowatts of solar power and 2 air source heat pumps to keep the buildings cool during the summer months. An installation is planned over the next 2 months. Next slide, please. So think in your community. Do you believe that you could establish an energy community in your area, in your community, for your school, your university, or public buildings?
If you can hold it here for a moment, Martin, it would be great, so we can see what people answer. The results are live presented on the slides. And for everyone who missed the Slido, the QR code is presented again top left, so you can always join. So we can just see what people answer, and then you can move on, of course. Thank you.
Okay. So lots of enthusiasm for taking this step. And the models on how to do it are now being shared and are available certainly on the AURORA website. All the material we have is available for others to use. But also there are other organizations across Europe now promoting energy communities. And so this is a great opportunity. Just imagine if every university and every school across Europe was moving in this direction. But what next? If you want to replicate the energy community approach in your school, your university, your community building, log into the AURORA Higher Energy Schools and Energy Communities workshop on the 30th of April at 12 o'clock. Download the AURORA Energy Tracker app and input your own data on energy consumption and learn about your carbon emissions. Next slide, please. But what if we had agreed citizen science methods, tools and techniques that any citizen across Europe could use? What if we shared our personal carbon footprints on a European-wide dashboard? But why stop at the European level? What if we did it at a global level? We have the technology, and it is now being done for global citizen science programs. And the next slide will show you an example. But some of the programs would be eBird, or this one called Mosquito Alert. This went live in November last year. The dashboard was then mainly America, Europe and Australia, and see how the data points have blossomed since. And we now have nearly 500,000 data points from citizens across the world using 4 standard methods to deliver the data that we all desire. And in this case, it's monitoring how mosquito species are changing as climate change affects us all, and we bring in new species into areas, particularly in Europe, that could carry new disease. Next slide, please. So would you, first of all, be willing to share your personal carbon data on a global dashboard at a European level? Would you be able to give the information on this type of dashboard? That's very interesting. That's very interesting. Obviously, the privacy of the individuals would be protected in the way that the data was shared, but there is a willingness to do that. Thank you. Let me go to the next slide. AURORA, in partnership with the Citizen Science Global Partnership and with the support of the EU Climate Pact, plans to develop common methodologies, tools and techniques and database systems that will allow global citizen science programs on climate change mitigation to emerge from the best examples in Europe. We have started with a global discussion group, so come and join us and add your thoughts. It's an open site where anyone can take part. Next slide, please. Get involved in plans to develop the global approach. Promote it with member states and across your communities. Bring our thinking to the United Nations Environment Assembly in December 2025. Take our arguments for funding to the UN Science Policy Business Forum at the same time. And the forum has the global leaders in business, NGOs, philanthropic organizations and public bodies as its members. Become part of the self-funded CSGP delegation to UNEA 7 and make sure our voice is heard. Next slide, please. In Europe, argue for the full integration of citizen science into the delivery of EU law and into the heart of the Green Deal. And then go and have a look at this policy brief on how this can be done for citizen science and EU regulations. But also argue for the inclusion of citizen science into member states' national development plans for climate. I don't think I can find one in Europe where citizen science has been built into the national development plan for achieving its carbon objectives. But above all, get involved in the policy process. Don't just be a data gatherer when you entertain or get involved in citizen science programs. So please, join the citizen science movement, the European Citizen Science Association. Take up and use standard citizen science tools to measure your carbon footprint. Share your results with family and friends and citizen science dashboards as they emerge. Become an early mover for change and live a better, cleaner, and above all, wealthier life. You have the power to change markets through your purchasing power and through the decisions you take, but only if millions of us work together. And after all, we only have one planet on which to live and nowhere else to go in 6.4 billion kilometers of space. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Martin, for this interesting presentation and for sharing more about the AURORA project. I think it's really aligned and closely related to initiatives that are also ongoing in the Climate Pact. So it was really interesting to see how I think small efforts, small investments can really lead to something bigger. And I think the policy brief you referred to, we will make sure that it's accessible to the participants of this webinar today. So thanks a lot. I think then we can move on to the last speaker of today. Iona, I'd like to give the floor to you so you can tell us everything about another new topic about Earth observations. I'm curious, so thanks a lot.
Thank you, Meryl. Thank you, Martin. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ioana Petrescu, and I'll be sharing today some information about Earth observation and citizen science to help accelerate climate action. So I'm excited to dive into the role of technology in addressing environmental challenges today. And so a little bit about me. I am a Climate Pact Ambassador, and I run Pur Simplu Verde, and Pur Simplu Verde, or Simply Green, is a Romanian green NGO, which is dedicated to fostering environmental awareness and action in Romania. Our organization works on projects utilizing satellite data, such as educational programs where we integrate satellite data into educational programs for Green Week initiative. And then I also advise SP, the European Space Policy Institute, on how satellite data can support public policy, particularly on climate change mitigation. My work connects space technology with environmental governance, and I am excited to explore these connections with you today. I see the slides are moving a little bit ahead of me. So what is Earth observation? We're going to start with discussing about satellites. And so that's the next slide. Thank you. And you see on this slide some information in terms of number of satellites. So one thing that is going to jump at you is that at the beginning of 2023, there were about 6,700 active satellites on orbit. And actually, this number is going to increase a lot in the next period. So it is predicted it's going to reach 22,000 and more in the next 10 years. So we have more and more satellites, and they're also better satellites than it used to be in the past. If you're looking at the table, you're moving a little bit too fast, so can you please go back? Thank you. If you're looking at the table, then you will see that most of these satellites are actually used for communication, and I think all of us are used to that because we're having phones and internet, and obviously we're using satellites for that. But a part of them, for example, are used for navigation, and that's also what we see, for example, on the phone, the GPS, right? It also comes from the satellite, helping us use applications like Waze and things like that. Now, the part that we're going to focus today is actually Earth observation, which is the one that has over 1,000 satellites focusing on this. And this is the part that's going to be basically the most helpful for citizen science. So let's discuss now a little bit about what is Earth observation. Okay, so observation refers to the collection of data about Earth's physical and chemical and biological systems through satellites, airborne sensors, and ground-based methods. And Earth observation provides real-time, large-scale data that helps us understand, for example, environmental changes and manage natural resources. It does much more than that, but we're just focused on the environmental part for today. Okay, so let me get back to you and ask you, what do you think the uses of Earth observations are? And I'm going to explain a little bit the options that you have. You can tick more than just one box here. So for example, climate change monitoring means tracking global temperature shifts, for example, ice cap melting, sea level rise, greenhouse gas emissions. Disaster response means monitoring and predicting natural disasters such as hurricanes and floods and wildfires, and aiding with efficient response and recovery efforts. Biodiversity and ecosystem monitoring means observing the land cover changes, forest health, special habitats, protect biodiversity. In agriculture means monitoring crop health, soil conditions, water resources to improve agriculture productivity and sustainability. And urban planning means actually looking at the city, how it grows and what green spaces it has and its supports for city planning. Okay, so that's very interesting. Okay, could you go back, please? You're moving a little bit too fast. Thank you. Okay, so I like that that a lot of you clearly answered more than one. I want to say that all of the answers are correct, and all of these things can be done with Earth observation. And actually, even during COVID, a lot of the disaster response and COVID response happened with the use of satellite. I'm commenting on that because I see only 62% of you thought that that might be relevant. Okay. Thank you. So now let's talk specifically about a particular Earth observation program, and this is Copernicus, and to learn a little bit of what is Copernicus. Okay, so next slide. Thank you. Next, Copernicus basically is the EU Earth observation program. It provides free and open data from the Sentinel satellites. That's what they're called, and they monitor environmental and they do that actually in quite an unprecedented detail. So Copernicus is crucial for tracking various types of climate parameters such as land, sea, atmosphere, and climate, and helps inform decision making in sectors like agriculture, water resources, forest, air quality, and urban development. Copernicus data is used by governments and researchers alike worldwide, and it supports climate action and also supports the EU climate goals. And now let's move to the next slide, which will show you a sample of the data that we get from Copernicus. I actually got this from their X account where they published this data, which is about sea ice. And you probably know, if you're more environmentally inclined, that sea ice plays a crucial role in regulating our climate. If it melts, not only raises sea levels, but also accelerates global warming. Satellite data, particularly from the Copernicus program, so through Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 satellites, we get high-resolution images and real-time data on ice extent, thickness, seasonal changes. And over the recent decades, we've seen a noticeable decline in the Arctic sea ice, a key indicator of climate change. And why is this important, you might think? Well, because this informs climate models and informs policymaking, and it helps scientists create different types of future warming scenarios. So by monitoring the sea ice with the Sentinel-1 and 2 satellites, we can better plan for the impact of climate change. And you can see easily from the data that Arctic sea ice was at the lowest in 47-year satellite record. And mostly this climate data is not very optimistic, unfortunately. So now I'm going to get back to you and to Slido and ask you a question regarding weather, because we also have data about the weather. And we know, unfortunately, that March 2025 was the warmest March in Europe. According to Copernicus, was the second warmest in the world. And I'm just wondering, what do you think was the average surface air temperature over land during this month? You have only one option here that you can vote on. I'm just like curious, how high do you think it is? I'm going to wait for you to settle down, and then I'm going to tell you what the result is and putting it a little bit in perspective, because that's why it's so incredibly important to have this data from satellites, because we have good data over years and we can understand if there are like really huge variations. Okay. So it really seems that the mode here is 6, which is correct. Which is a lot. It might not seem a lot, but it's actually about 2.41%, 2.41 degrees Celsius above the 1991 to 2020 average. So, so it might not seem that it's a high temperature, but it is historically. So, so now that we understood a little bit what Copernicus is doing, let's see how we can use, for example, Copernicus for a citizen science project. So this is one example. C4C is my own initiative that combines Copernicus data with citizen science, and it's focusing on monitoring forests, including biomass and carbon. And if you go to the next slide, it will show you a little bit more detail about C4C. And that is because it encourages citizens to take photos with their smartphones of local forests, and these photos are processed with AI, and they're integrated with Copernicus satellite data to improve forest mapping. And they also are doing several tests on forest biomass mapping, tree species identification, and biomass of trees outside forests. And it's really nice because it has a social component. It educates the public on the values of Copernicus data and citizen science in achieving climate neutrality and sustainable forest management. And I thought it was also a very easy example that everybody can understand why forests are so important and how we can help with tracking what's going on in forest. So let me ask you now another quiz question. It's going to be just one correct answer, just to keep you on your toes. So in Europe, forest covers about 180 million hectares, representing more than 40% of the total land area. What percentage of the total greenhouse gas emissions do you think European Union forest absorbs? So we're interested in the EU forest. What do you think it's a percent? I'm going to let you think about it, and then I'm going to tell you the answer and sort of what it means, the number. So I'm just going to let you think a little bit through it. So this is what percentage of the total greenhouse gas emissions do you think that the European Union forest absorb? Okay. Okay, so it seems like most of you think it's 4%. Let's see if the results change. Okay, so the correct answer is 9%. And I think I wanted to put this question also because I have a feeling in interacting maybe with people who don't know much about fighting climate change, that carbon sequestration by absorbing CO2, right? Like that's important, and forests clearly play an important role, but they don't play such an important role in the overall pictures as you might say. Thing. So of course it is important for you to go and plant trees, but if you don't do that without transitioning to renewable energy, improving energy efficiency, reducing emissions from industry and transport, then it's not going to be enough. So trees are part of the solutions, as you can see from the numbers, and but it's not a silver bullet. So that's why I wanted to put that out there. And so let me give you at the end some resources for citizen science. And I like to give you two types of resources. So one type of resource that you see on this slide are 3 types of data. All of them are free and available to use. Some of the NASA Earth data, it's mostly climate related data, and it has satellite sensors, and you can have free access to temperature, precipitation, atmospheric composition, vegetation data. And a lot of people are using it for climate research, environmental monitoring, and natural resource management. The Copernicus, we talked about it, but I just wanted to say that this is free data, it's open access, and it has data on land cover, vegetation health, climate change, sea surface temperature, atmospheric conditions. Another good source of free data is NOAA. NOAA stands for National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. It's a federal agency in the US. And they have temperature records, precipitation patterns, and atmospheric conditions. And they're very important data for climate policies. And now you could use this data to participate in some of the citizen science projects that use satellite data. So on the next slides, you will see 3 such projects. And okay, so the first 2 deal with land more or less, and the third one deals with weather. So LandSense is a European Union funded citizens science initiative that uses satellite data and public participation to map land cover and land use across Europe. So basically people can contribute by validating and updating maps of their local landscape, creating accurate environmental data. GeoWiki is an online platform that allows volunteers to assist in land cover classification and vegetation monitoring by validating satellite data. So volunteers check satellite data images and provide feedback on the land use and environmental changes, and that can help in global land cover maps. And MPING, which stands for meteorological phenomenon identification near the ground, allows to report weather. So for example, if you see it raining or snowing, and but that helps a lot because it contributes to a crowdsourced weather database, and that data is integrated with satellite data on weather and makes forecast and climate models much better. And so I really hope that you find this exciting, and that that you're going to use these powerful tools, and whether it's tracking, you know, forest health and monitoring biodiversity or supporting climate resilience. I think this combination between using satellite data and citizen science can provide accessible and impact ways for everyone to contribute. So thank you for your attention, and I'm waiting for your questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Iona, for explaining us what Earth observations are, but also understanding better what you can do with it and what role they play in climate research. I think it was very interesting, so thanks a lot. And indeed, we'll see the questions at the end of this webinar, so everybody please feel free to use the Slido to submit your questions. Then we can go on to the next part. Beatriz, I would like to invite you because indeed, let's get a taste of citizen science. We'll give you the opportunity to actually join in a citizen science project. There you are. Thanks a lot. I'll give the word to you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you also to Martin and Joanna for such insightful presentations. And now let's get a taste of citizen science. Let's go to the next slide. Thank you. I want you to try Zooniverse because in Zooniverse, there are many different types of projects that we can just join in without creating an account or without even having any kind of previous knowledge on these topics. And I think that's really nice. We can actually help scientists with this project. And there are two options, whether you are more of a tree person or a fish person. You can choose the one that you would like to explore. So just take the, if you scan the code, it will take you either to the tree if you go for the left one, or to the fish project if you go for the right one. And I would say it's really, really intuitive. There are some instructions when you go in, and it will explain to you, for example, for the tree, it will tell you how to select individual trees or group of trees. So just quickly go through the instructions really, really fast. And then I would suggest that, how long can we take, Meryl? Maybe you can tell us. 7 minutes?
Yes. Oh, sorry. Yeah, 7 minutes is, yeah, like 5 to 7 minutes. That should be fine. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Then I would say I just stay quiet for these 5 to 7 minutes and go for it. Let's explore a bit.
Yeah,
And then
indeed,
I'll
let's
see you
give
back.
it a try. Thanks. Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, I think we can take 2 or 3 more minutes, and in the meanwhile, maybe Beatriz, can you tell a little bit about what, because I tried the exercise as well. Can you tell a little bit about what is being done with our inputs from today?
Sure. I mean, it depends because there are so many different kinds of projects, and in each project, if you go at the top, you can go below and say explore project, and it tells you about the project, what is happening. But the important thing is that our brains are actually trained to recognize patterns, and that's why we are usually much better than machines in recognizing, for example, whether there is a tree or a fish, or for example, galaxies. We can also recognize the shape, what type of galaxy it might be. So we really can, maybe, you know, a lot of people just scroll social media when they are even on the bathroom or even watching TV. So sometimes I think it's quite useful to think about other things that we can be doing with our time on our phones. And just by taking 5 or 10 minutes of our time, we can really bring science forward and knowledge. So I think it's a really nice idea to have this app around, or I think it's not even an app, it's just a website.
Yeah. Yeah, and so you were saying we're actually better in recognizing these pictures and images than a machine.
Yes, and actually the machines would anyways need our input. You know, when we go
exactly.
when we go on Google, sometimes it asks us to recognize things. So it says to say that you're a human, you get some images and you have to tell if there is a traffic light or there is a tree. And it is in order to train these models so that machines can also do it. But it's true that our brains are still a bit better.
And is it also the purpose here to train the machine, or you think it will be a manual operation?
In this case, I think it's not the purpose. No, in this case, it's not the purpose to train the models, but rather just to go through a lot of images that are available also thanks to all these satellites, in fact. And yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for providing a little bit more information. I hope everyone found a project that he or she found interesting and can participate. And otherwise, as Beatriz was saying, when you're on your couch or you are about to open social media, maybe change your mind and try Zooniverse or another project. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think you have, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I give it back to you. I think you have a couple more questions, right? So,
yes.
Okay, thanks.
I would, first of all, I would like to encourage everyone to do that, like to check out other projects as well. And then I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. I think they are in the next slides. So if you would go back to the Slido and tell me maybe in a few words whether you learned something today, not only from my part, but also from Martin's and Joanna's part. What is one thing you learned today? Yes, we learned about Aurora project and Copernicus. Details on how to use satellite images. The term citizen science. Yes, nice. Keep it coming. That is so nice. I think it is always great to learn something, and what a great opportunity to learn something together today. I think just one more minute so people can finish their thoughts, and then we can move on to the next question. Amazing. Thank you so much. Let's continue just in the interest of time. How did you feel about participating in a citizen science project today? Maybe if you could summarize it in one word, whether you felt, yeah, good. Oh, that's really fantastic. I think very happy, excited, empowered, inspired, optimistic, cool. Very, very positive words. I think I might come out of this webinar very happy after seeing all these positive words. Just a few more seconds to let everyone share. Awesome. Yeah, I would say let's move on to the next one. Would you consider taking part in a citizen science project in the future? Perfect. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Just as a final homework, if I may, I would encourage you to register to the European Citizen Science Platform. The QR code will take you directly there. I think it's a good idea because there you can find out which projects are happening in your city or close to you, and maybe join or at least learn about it. And next. Another thing that I would like to encourage you is to download the app iNaturalist, where you can actually go around, take pictures of what you see, plants or insects, for example, and upload them. And you can also get the name. If you don't know what it is, you get suggestions of what it could be, or maybe you already know what it is and you just want to put it there. I think it's very important that we as people go in get more in touch with nature, because we cannot save what we don't know. So it's quite important. Also, on the 23rd of May, it's a Taxonomy Recognition Day. And one hashtag that we use is name it to save it, because again, if we don't know it, we cannot save it. So I really encourage you to go around and look at your surroundings, take a few pictures, and upload them to iNaturalist. Thank you very much. I think that's it for me.
I went on and off, but here I am. Yes, great. Thanks a lot, Beatriz, for sharing this experience with us and giving the opportunity to join a citizen science project. And good to hear that there's a lot more possible here, and great that everybody really enjoyed and saw the value and the fun of citizen science. I think that's a great takeaway. So I would like to also invite, oh, Beatriz, you can stay if you'd like. And also Martin and Iona, please feel free to turn on your cameras and your speakers, because during the webinar, we received several questions from the audience. I think, Beatriz, maybe to start with you, there was one participant that is wondering how to say do-it-yourself citizen science project, or maybe the more bottom-up one, as the two different approaches that you explained can become an actual part of scientific work rather than staying sort of isolated in the community.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think it is not really, not quite possible to do a project of citizen science by ourselves. So we would always need to do it in a community to have the first step would be to get people that are interested in the same topic, and then maybe talk to scientists from our local universities, see who is around that can actually also be part of this. Of course, we have the power and we have the knowledge to start, but at the end, we cannot do everything alone. So I think the power in citizen science is to have all these actors interconnected. So from citizens to scientists to small enterprises. So I would say always do it as a community. And it's also a great opportunity to meet people that are like-minded and that have similar ideas and similar questions to what we have. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, thanks. So to really leverage the network and try to have access somewhere that you can spread it to a bigger community, basically.
Yes.
Thanks. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. And Martin, I think there were some questions for you too. I think people were for sure interested in the AURORA project, and yeah, they want to spend a little bit more time researching it and how it works. So I think some people asked to share the materials that we will definitely do. And then a question. So here it is. How can citizens?
Meryl, could I just add to that and just say that anybody can now download the AURORA app. It can be used anywhere across Europe. The algorithms now allow that to take place. Also, all the data behind the AURORA app is publicly available. So any geeks out there can take it and refine it for their own locality. And all we ask is that they put back the improvements that they make in the process, because we're applying the UNESCO open science principles to everything that we do.
Okay, great. That's good to know. Thank you for adding that. And then going to the question. So somebody is wondering, how can citizen science contribute to improving efforts for climate action?
Well, let me dive in straight away. The beauty about what I was trying to explain is that the more people that take part in citizen science activity to reduce their own personal carbon footprint, the more impact it's going to have. And what you find with these projects is that once you start a process, people learn from you locally and copy. So just to give you an example, in one of our pilot areas, where we've opened up an energy community that's working with its local school and its local leisure centre to actually do an energy community in terms of reducing carbon footprints and improving the energy transition. There are now another 50 projects queuing up behind it that want to take part, that have been identified. And already we're starting to see other commercial installations, for instance, trying to copy the approach, and they're working with solar cooperatives in the process. But I always stress to people, what's really important is not just about the energy transition, but about linking it to your carbon footprint and understanding how you're driving your carbon footprint down, because it's not just about an energy transition, it's about reducing carbon, making an impact. And we can only do that when we do this at scale. So the more people that do it, the more impactful we become. And that's why I mentioned the national development plans, where it's really important to try to encourage member states to incorporate citizen science into their national development plans for climate change. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, indeed, as you're saying, raising awareness and making sure people are conscious, indeed, not just about energy, but about their impact more broadly. I think that's interesting and very important indeed. Thank you very much. And then, Joanna, I have one question for you as well. So you talked about the Copernicus project, of course, and some people are wondering, like, how accessible is this work also to citizens? Like, I think it was some parts were a bit more technical, maybe. So, to what extent do you think is it that it's accessible?
That's a very good question. So the Copernicus program is actually funded through our own money, and the point is that the data, it is available to everyone, and especially if you do education or research, it is available to people, and that's the whole point, to make it available and make it easy to understand. And of course, if you are a researcher, you're probably going to look at a different type of resolution data than maybe if you're just a citizen who is interested in this sort of maybe more general climate data. But yes, I think it is made to be pretty easy to understand. I think the website is really well done. If you follow them on X, they would regularly post very nice graphs from the data that they are collecting. So they're also sort of interpreting it for you. So I think if you go to their website, you are going to find a lot of very, very interesting data that it's easy to understand. And I think because they meant it for the people to have it, it's not just for the scientists or for sort of the space crowds, because in general, the Earth observation part of space, it's sort of space for Earth, right? So it's sort of like space type of capability for Earth's benefit and for us in general. So I think all of the 3 examples of data that I gave you are sort of relatively easy to understand and quite a click away, like both the NASA one, NOAA, and Copernicus. And of course, there are some data that it's a little bit more difficult to understand because you need to understand how to interpret certain satellite imagery, right? So I'm not saying like all of it is accessible from the very beginning, but you can learn how to access and how to interpret satellite data, like raw satellite data. So that's something that is being taught. And if you are interested to learn that, that's great. But as I mentioned, there are data that it's easy to access and graphs that are easy to understand. And in fact, actually, I just wanted to say, whenever you hear in the news, you know, it was the warmest month ever or things like that, it's usually data from Copernicus that is being interpreted and given to the news. It's not other type of data. So I just hope that that you guys take a look and look. There are Copernicus and Galileo. They're like the 2 sort of satellite type of programs that you can take a look. I focused on Copernicus because it's more climate data.
And Meryl, could I just say there's some really exciting projects where you bring citizen science and remote sensing data together that potentially are global. So deforestation is one of the areas where satellite data has been extensively used, with citizen scientists actually analyzing the data and linking to ground teams that go in to stop illegal logging. So that's a really nice one. And that was schools that were doing the analysis of the data. And there were schools from several countries that were taking each octagon of an area and linking with their counterparts in other countries. So there's all sorts of social interaction coming through that citizen science project, as well as really hard data, which the enforcement teams used to prevent illegal logging.
Yeah, thanks a lot, both. I think indeed, as you were saying, Jana, there's plenty of interesting resources to explore. Good to hear that they are really putting an effort in translating the information to make sure it's really understandable. And well, we've been talking already for 90 minutes. I see it's almost 2 o'clock, but there is a world to discover here. I think some people also mentioned it in the answer, so that's really true. So take the invitation from Jana to explore more. So thanks a lot to all 3 of you for providing so many insights and for really teaching us more about citizen science and from many different perspectives. I think it was a really interesting webinar. I would like to continue with some final remarks to close this webinar. Yes, the final remarks indeed. So first of all, we have some news from the Climate Action Academy. So we're currently uploading all the webinars that we have hosted so far on a platform called, you can maybe go to the next slide so people can also see it. Yes, thank you. So as I was saying, we're currently uploading all the webinars that we've hosted on the EU Academy platform, which is a platform where you can find many different types of courses, but soon our courses will also be included. So keep an eye on your inbox where you will receive an invitation to enroll. And then lastly, make sure to visit the Climate Pact website so you're up to date with all the most recent developments. You can also find the climate ambassadors like Joanna, but also the partners like the European Citizen Science Association from today. And you can also check out what's going on in your community. Also subscribe to the newsletter so you get it in your inbox as well. That's it for today. So thank you everyone for joining and for participating in this webinar. As soon as you close the webinar, you will receive a pop-up to evaluate, and we're always curious to hear about your feedback so we can keep on improving the Academy. So thanks a lot everyone and have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.